Hey, what's going on, everyone? Today I am down on the piece of property that I filled my 2021 Ohio buck tag on, and it was a really good hunt, and I made some moves that allowed for me to be successful, and I just wanted to break those down for you today, walk you through the hunt, go exactly over to where I was initially set up, why I was set up there, where I moved to, and where I ended up killing that buck for this year's tag. So one of the things that you hear guys talk about a lot is your access, having one unique access and two going places other people won't go. And as you can see behind me here, I have this creek that runs the entire length of the property that I can hunt, and you can see woods way over there. There's a patch of trees and there's a tree stand over there, and then that is the only other piece of timber that you can hunt without crossing this creek, and a lot of guys won't do it. So check mark number one, good access and going to a spot other people won't go. So let's cross this creek. I had to throw my waders on today because it's a lot higher than it was when I crossed it to hunt initially. So we'll get across here and I will break it down from there. Okay, so here's what it looks like when you first cross the creek. And I'll break this stuff down on the map as well, but all out in front of me here, all to the side, this is all bedding, everything here. And as I walked in my initial hunt here, I had a west southwest wind that was kind of blowing me back over towards this creek, but I'm giving up this bedding area. My wind is gonna be blowing into this bedding area. But historically, I knew where I wanted to be because I had a trail camera last year a little bit further back here, and I'll show you where that camera was set up, and I'll show you why I was set up over in this area. So let's walk back in here to where it all went down. All right guys, here we are at the initial destination. This is where I wanted to set up for that initial hunt. This was Saturday, November 6th, and as you can see, it's just kind of a little pine grove, and then over here it's all thick. You have this transition from kind of hardwoods, which is thick undergrowth. And my initial plan was to get my heads up decoy, get tucked into one of these pine trees, and try to call a buck that was cruising this bedding area. I had a southwest wind. I wanted a deer to come circle downwind of this bedding area and then catch this bedding area down here. So my initial setup, I picked a pine tree. So these two pine trees right here, my initial setup, I had the decoy right here, and my anticipated movement was coming out of this. So tickled the antlers together a little bit, grunted a little bit, and I had the first deer of the day coming to check me out, and he was coming down this trail and actually was going behind these pines here in between that next transition, and I was set up here and that decoy was out here. So I grunted that. It was just a 4-point. This was my first hunt with this decoy, and I wanted to see how the deer would react to it. So I grunted. That 4-point came, circled around. It was perfect. If it was the right deer, I would have pulled it off. So again, this is the initial setup. Here's the pine trees. This is kind of how I was set up in here on my knees. And as that hunt went on, again, I'm anticipating all this movement to happen in front of me because my wind's going kind of back to where I came in, back over the creek. With about 45 minutes left of light, 30 minutes left of light, I caught a glimpse of something moving behind me, and I have the decoy set up where that deer was. And you can see that deer took that same trail that 4-point took, and he was headed back in here, back this way. And as I was set up here, I tried to move to, I was gonna see if he could circle around me and I could get a shot or whatever, and I wanted to get a better look at what it was, and it was a big framed 8-point, 130-inch 8-point. And I moved, he saw me, and he spooked. So 20 minutes left of light or so after that encounter, another 6-point walks down that same exact trail. So that was 3 bucks, did the same exact thing. walk the same exact trail. And for the next 3 days, I was gonna have the same wind. So I knew the next morning that I was gonna have to come in gray light and set up on that trail. So I'll walk over here, show you guys this trail and show you the setup. Here is this trail. One, I have a trail coming through here. You can see it's just a cow path. And then you can just see this trail too. Just annihilated, just beat down. And they're all going down in here. There's some bedding cover, and then out there is all food. So that's the travel. That's the known travel direction. So what I did the next morning, Sunday morning in gray light, I came in and I set up in that tree right there. So this was the beginning of November, so there's a lot more cover at the time, but I stayed low enough to where I wouldn't be skylined. And then anything coming down this trail would have to look through this tree anyway to see me. So I would be just right above that. So that next morning, I had another buck walk the same exact trail, just wasn't the right buck. And then I had some more activity in the bedding area that I was initially hunting. I had a shooter buck chasing off other small bucks. So what I had going for me was, one, I knew there was a really good buck in the area. I had the encounter with him the previous night. Two, I just saw another shooter buck running other bucks off. So I have a hot doe in the area. Three, I have annual data from my cell camera, or from my trail camera the previous year, that told me that from the next 5 days or so, it's gonna be really hot in here. So I just needed to be here set up in the right spot. So the next morning, Monday morning, I had a south wind. Southwest works, west-southwest works, north works. South really is not that ideal, because see where that deer is set up there? There's my tree. This is all bedding. This is where that camera is. The wind was blowing from me right into here. So the next morning, I took that morning and hunted somewhere else. Didn't have the right wind to be in here. Had a good hunt. Tuesday morning comes around and I have the right wind, but I was just kind of feeling drained. Didn't want to come in here. I was kind of feeling defeated. So I took that morning off, and wouldn't you know it, this is November 9th, and there's a shooter buck on this camera that is over my shoulder in here. So that tells me, okay, I need to get back in there. The morning of November 10th, I come in, the wind has switched from a southwest to a north, and that north wind is blowing back towards the highway. The setup in the morning works really well, because out this way you can kind of see where the woods end. There's some green food, and in the mornings as deer are feeding out there, coming back this way to bed. November 10th, morning hunt, really foggy. Temperatures were warming up, and I could see deer kind of feeding out in that field again, and I was anticipating that movement coming back to bed. However, the fog got really bad, and my visibility went to almost 30 yards is about all further I could see. And I told myself, okay, just sit until, I don't know, 9 o'clock. And if that fog lifts, maybe the deer get up on their feet and move around a little bit more. It wasn't 15 minutes later, I hear crashing off behind me, and I hear a grunt, and I turn around and I look, and there's a 10-point coming out into this opening right on my trail. And I saw the buck first, and I was thinking to myself, like, that's odd. If it's a buck chasing a doe, why am I seeing the buck first? And then I hear more crashing, and behind me, big 8-point comes. And again, this is the tree that I'm in. This is the trail he took. He came right out here, right to where that decoy's standing, and I shot him at 20 yards, quartering away. So the setup worked absolutely perfect. And for the things that I will take away, and things that you should take away from this hunt, is number one, trust your annual data. Maybe not to hunt a specific buck. It turns out that the buck that I shot November 9th of 2020, he showed up for the very first time on that exact same camera. November 9th, 2021. It was within hours that that deer was on the exact same trail for the first time 365 days later. But my plan wasn't to be in this area to kill that deer. I just knew that there was a doe in heat around that time and I needed to be in here. So you can trust your annual data to tell you to be in a certain area at a certain time. Number two, if you see multiple bucks do the same thing and you're not set up for that, you need to move. If I would have stayed where I initially was, it would have never worked. I would have never been able to get a shot off. I could have tried and been stubborn. I was like, no, I want to use the decoy. I want to call to him. I could have been stubborn and tried that, but I knew it was just a matter of time before a shooter buck took that same trail again. So that is how the hunt for my Ohio buck in 2021 went down. Hope that video helped you guys. Maybe you learned something and can apply it to your own hunting scenarios. If you're still out there with the tag, keep grinding away. Good luck to you, and we'll see you next video.